My beloved child. Pause with me for a moment. There are times when life appears ordinary on the surface while, beyond what human eyes can see, quiet pieces begin to fall into place. This is one of those moments. If these words have found you today, do not rush past them. Let your heart become still, because this is a fictional story told through the voice of heaven, created to remind you that even in confusion, hope can still be found. You have wondered why certain conversations felt unfinished. You have questioned why someone close to your life seemed to speak in half-truths, changing their tone whenever your name appeared. You were never meant to carry every answer at once. Some truths arrive only after every piece has found its proper place, and today I invite you into a story about that very moment. Your soulmate had not been searching for a revelation. They were simply living another ordinary day, believing they already understood everything they needed to know. Yet sometimes a single forgotten memory, a quiet conversation, or an unexpected detail can illuminate what years of uncertainty kept hidden. It was not one dramatic event that changed everything. It was several small moments that suddenly began fitting together like stars forming a constellation across the night sky. At first, they dismissed the feeling. They told themselves they were imagining connections that were never there. But the more they reflected, the clearer those connections became. They remembered words once spoken casually by someone close to you. They remembered unusual pauses, gentle warnings, and conversations that never seemed important until now. Each memory returned carrying a meaning they had never noticed before. As understanding slowly unfolded, they realized that appearances often conceal deeper stories. People can wear calm expressions while carrying silent fears. They can offer advice while quietly protecting someone they love. They can remain silent, not because they wish to deceive, but because they believe the right time has not yet arrived. This realization did not fill them with anger. Instead, it awakened compassion. They began to understand that every person carries unseen burdens, and every relationship holds chapters that outsiders cannot fully read. Rather than judging what had happened, they chose to listen more carefully, to the quiet spaces between words, to the emotions hidden beneath ordinary conversations, and to the gentle wisdom that patience often reveals. As the evening settled, they found themselves thinking about you more deeply than ever before. Not because they believed they had uncovered every answer, but because they sensed there was far more to your story than they had once imagined. That realization softened their heart. It reminded them that understanding another soul requires humility, kindness, and time. Meanwhile, unseen by them, heaven continued weaving together moments that neither of you could fully understand. Doors that once seemed firmly closed were quietly beginning to open. Conversations that had been delayed were moving closer. Hearts that had become cautious were slowly rediscovering courage. And though neither of you could yet see the complete picture, the story had already begun to change. To be continued. The quiet realization lingered long after the moment itself had passed. Your soulmate could not simply return to life as though nothing had changed. Something within them had awakened, not fear, not suspicion, but a deeper awareness that every person carries a story hidden beneath what the world can see. They looked back over the path that had brought them here, and for the first time they noticed how many moments had quietly pointed toward the same truth. What once appeared to be random now seemed connected by an invisible thread that only heaven could have woven together. My child, understand this part of the story carefully. Not every mystery is meant to create doubt. Some mysteries exist only until your heart is ready to receive understanding with wisdom instead of emotion. If every answer arrived too early, it would only create confusion. But when your spirit has grown stronger, the same truth becomes a blessing instead of a burden. Your soulmate sat alone for a while, allowing silence to become their teacher. No distractions. No hurried conclusions. Just a heart asking gentle questions. What have I been missing? What have I misunderstood? Why does everything feel different now? Those questions echoed quietly within them, and although immediate answers did not arrive, peace slowly began replacing uncertainty. Then another memory surfaced. It was so ordinary that they had almost forgotten it completely. Someone close to you had once smiled while mentioning your name, but behind that smile there had been something impossible to describe. At the time, your soulmate ignored it. Now they remembered every detail. The tone of voice, the hesitation before speaking, the careful choice of words. Nothing dramatic had happened in that conversation, yet suddenly it carried a completely different meaning. Their heart whispered, "Perhaps I only understood half the story." Instead of allowing imagination to race ahead, they chose patience. They realized that wisdom is never found through assumptions. Wisdom grows through kindness, careful listening, and the courage to wait until every piece reveals itself naturally. That decision became the turning point of the journey. Meanwhile, unseen by human eyes, heaven continued moving quietly. Doors that seemed locked were beginning to loosen. Conversations that had never happened before were drawing closer. Hearts that had become guarded were learning how to trust again. None of these changes arrived with thunder. They arrived softly, almost unnoticed, like the first light before sunrise. The greatest works of heaven often begin so gently that only those who pay attention recognize them. Your soulmate began noticing small moments throughout the following day that confirmed the change within them. They found themselves speaking more gently. They listened more carefully whenever your name appeared. They no longer rushed to judge what they did not fully understand. Instead, they asked themselves, "What if there is goodness here that I simply haven't seen yet?" That single question transformed everything. It became the key that opened doors inside their own heart. For so long they had believed that every answer had to be immediate. Now they realized that the strongest relationships are often built not upon instant certainty, but upon growing understanding. Every new realization drew them one step closer. Not merely toward discovering more about you, but toward becoming the kind of person capable of protecting something precious. Heaven smiled upon that quiet change. Growth rarely announces itself with loud celebrations. Most of the time it happens during silent evenings when nobody is watching, when a heart chooses compassion instead of pride, patience instead of frustration, hope instead of fear. And that is exactly where your soulmate found themselves. Unknown to them, someone close to you was carrying a conversation within their own heart. They had witnessed things they never intended to share. Not because those memories were harmful, but because they believed the timing had never been right. Yet circumstances were shifting. Their silence was becoming heavier than their words. Still, heaven whispered, "Not yet." There was one final piece that had to move before everything could be understood correctly. Your soulmate sensed this without fully realizing why. Every instinct urged them not to force answers. They felt an unusual calm replacing the urgency that once controlled them. It was as though an unseen hand had gently reminded them that truth never needs to be chased desperately. What belongs in the light will eventually step into it. As evening approached once more, they found themselves thinking about a simple lesson. Sometimes the people closest to us are quietly protecting wounds we never knew existed. Sometimes the strongest acts of love are invisible. Sometimes the greatest misunderstandings are born not from dishonesty, but from incomplete perspectives. Those thoughts softened every remaining edge within them. For the first time in a long while, they prayed, not for immediate answers, but for wisdom to recognize them when they arrived. That prayer did not echo into emptiness. It rose quietly toward heaven. And heaven answered, not with a voice, but with another unexpected connection. Across town, someone reached for an old message they had almost deleted. A forgotten conversation was about to be opened again. Words that had remained hidden for far too long were only moments away from being seen. Your soulmate knew nothing about it. You knew nothing about it. Yet the next chapter had already begun. And when those forgotten words finally came into the light, both of your hearts would be forced to see the story from an entirely new perspective. The truth waiting inside that message was not what anyone expected, and it would change the direction of everything that followed. The night grew quieter, yet the silence no longer felt empty. It felt expectant, as though all of creation were holding its breath for a single moment that had been quietly approaching for far longer than anyone realized. Your soulmate could not explain why peace and anticipation existed together within their heart. They only knew that something unseen was gently leading them forward, one careful step at a time. My beloved child, there are moments when heaven does not answer every question immediately because understanding is not simply about receiving information. It is about becoming the kind of soul that can carry truth with grace. The greatest revelations are never meant to create fear. They are meant to replace confusion with wisdom and uncertainty with hope. As dawn approached, someone close to you found themselves unable to ignore a memory that had returned again and again. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was simply persistent. They remembered words they had once spoken without much thought. They remembered encouraging someone to remain patient instead of making quick assumptions. At the time, they believed those words would be forgotten. But they were not. Those very words had quietly remained alive, waiting for the right season to reveal their true meaning. Your soulmate, without realizing it, had begun seeing every past conversation through a different lens. They no longer searched for hidden motives. Instead, they searched for hidden kindness. That simple shift changed everything. Details that once appeared confusing now seemed filled with compassion. What had once looked like distance now appeared to be caution. What had once felt like silence now resembled someone protecting hearts until the proper moment arrived. The pieces were coming together. Not because someone forced them into place, but because time itself had prepared the moment. Meanwhile, heaven continued arranging encounters so naturally that nobody suspected anything unusual was happening. Two ordinary conversations unfolded in different places. Neither seemed important on its own. Yet together they carried a quiet confirmation that the story was moving exactly where it needed to go. One person casually mentioned your name. Another smiled gently before saying, "Sometimes we misunderstand people simply because we don't know what they've been carrying." Those words settled deeply within your soulmate's heart. They could not explain why. They simply knew they needed to hear them. That evening they walked alone beneath the fading light, reflecting on everything that had changed within them over the past few days. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, they felt grateful. Grateful that patience had prevented them from believing incomplete stories. Grateful that heaven had guided them away from quick conclusions. Grateful that every unanswered question had slowly become an invitation to grow rather than a reason to lose hope. Then something unexpected happened. A familiar voice reached out, not to reveal a secret, not to expose anyone, but simply to share an honest memory. It was a memory about you. A small act of kindness you had shown long ago. One that you yourself may have forgotten. Yet someone else had never forgotten it. They described how your compassion had quietly changed an ordinary day into something unforgettable. They spoke without exaggeration. Without drama. Just simple gratitude. As your soulmate listened, another realization settled into place. The person they had been trying to understand had always been consistent. Kindness had followed you longer than circumstances ever could. The more they listened, the more their heart became certain that there was far more beauty hidden inside your story than they had ever imagined. My beloved child, this is one of heaven's quiet lessons. Character is often revealed through the memories people carry about you long after the moment has passed. Reputation can change overnight. Opinions can rise and fall. But genuine kindness leaves echoes that remain for years. Those echoes had now reached your soulmate. They realized that what connected all the pieces was never suspicion. It was love expressed quietly. Respect earned patiently. Trust built one ordinary moment at a time. The confusion that once clouded their heart began disappearing like morning mist beneath sunlight. Yet heaven was not finished. Because while your soulmate was discovering these truths, someone else was standing before an old keepsake, a photograph tucked safely inside a forgotten book. The picture captured a simple moment. Nothing extraordinary. Just people smiling together. But written on the back, almost faded with time, was a short handwritten sentence. It read, "One day everything will make sense." No date. No signature. Only those words. The person holding it became still. A wave of memories returned all at once. Conversations. Promises. Moments that had seemed disconnected. For the first time, they understood why certain choices had been made. Not to separate hearts. Not to create distance. But to allow healing where healing was needed first. Far away, your soulmates suddenly felt an unexplainable peace settle over them. They looked toward the evening sky and quietly whispered, "Thank you." They did not know exactly why those words escaped their lips. They only knew their heart no longer carried the same weight. Hope had quietly replaced uncertainty. Faith had gently replaced frustration. And somewhere beyond what human eyes could see, heaven smiled. Because every step had unfolded exactly as intended. Yet even now, one final conversation had not taken place. Someone who had remained silent from the very beginning had finally decided they could no longer keep their thoughts to themselves. They were preparing to speak. Not to reveal something harmful. Not to accuse anyone. But to share the one missing piece that would allow every heart involved to understand the full picture. Your soulmate had no idea that this conversation was only hours away. Neither did you. But when those words were finally spoken, they would illuminate everything that had remained hidden in plain sight, and both of your journeys would enter a chapter neither of you could have imagined.